So for those of you that don't know, we all work on the same team at the Cypress Initiative, and the Cypress Initiative is a nonprofit organization. I think I said that day one, but we were started in 2007, and we're a Three Principles nonprofit organization. And we started working in the jails prior to my time being there, but actually Mark worked there right when it started.
Yeah.
So
Right when it started.
yeah, so but now we mostly work within schools and with administration in schools, with the students in the schools, and we work with a Spark mentoring program that we developed, and it's just a Three Principles based program. So we work in obviously Mr. Hurd, James Hurd's school, but we also work in all types of schools. So from private Christian schools to we work in a program with future teachers. We work with a foster care agency that's implementing this program within their organization, and career centers, alternative schools. So that's kind of where we're going to be speaking from today, from that experience and drawing on that experience. Did you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Helen Neal Ali, and I'm the community educator. So you usually don't see me on Zoom calls because I'm in the school. So I'm like out there running. That's my heart. The kids are my babies and my grandkids, and I just adopt everybody. So that's usually what I do. And then I also do some training as new people are coming on. They shadow me, and I train them as we're getting ready to go. But I've been in this 22 years. It changed my life. And immediately I knew I had to share it. So I didn't teach it because I didn't know what I was teaching, but I shared the experiences that I went through, and I've seen many lives in these 22 years be changed just for sharing. So I just want to throw that out there to you. You don't have to teach this. You just share what you got. Because I think that's the most powerful gift you can give anybody is how this changed your life. And they can see and they can feel, especially kids. When you're working with kids, they know when you're genuine and they know when you're not. They know if you just give them a bunch of stuff, and they know the opposite. They know your heart. So that's it for me. And Miss Nikki?
I'm Nicole. I'm in the classrooms as well, teaching the principals. I also do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
My title is the Community Programs Coordinator, but I'm just here to pick up where I need to be helping at in every situation in Cypress.
And she does a good job.
Thank you.
Yes. So I thought we would start today just to kind of check in and see before we get into what we wanted to talk about today, to see if there were loose ends, where you are, what came up overnight, or what you hope today brings. So this is the last session here with us. So what are you really hoping that they better talk about this today, or I just wasted my whole weekend?
No pressure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So of course, like you said, when you get the information, you're excited, and you feel like you want to share it with your babies, your children, your sisters, whatever. And so I was saying, okay, so I have thoughts about what it is, but if I were to model it for them, what would be the way that I can model, maybe with them knowing or not knowing, depending on who the person was, to help them to see that maybe I handle it differently from how I used to handle it. So it could be a setup modeling or a modeling where I'm just exhibiting it so they maybe see or feel it.
So can I take that?
Yeah.
I know, I can feel you going.
Okay.
There's one of the main points that I think we wanted to talk about today was the difference between sharing and teaching. So when we go into schools, we actually do teach the principals. So we're there. They didn't ask us to come in, right? These kids are just kind of our captive audience for a little bit. And we do start by teaching them what the principles are. And then we share from our experience. But I think there's a difference in sharing what you see versus trying to teach someone something. And in school, you kind of get the privilege to be able to go and teach students something because that's what school is. But with family, you don't have that same permission, I guess. And so what we wanted to talk today about is how sharing is really natural. And if you just share from what you know, people will pick up on it. And I have a story that some of you may have heard, but I came across this understanding kind of in like a backwards way, where my husband had just lost his brother to suicide, and he waited about a year to even acknowledge it to himself. And then the year anniversary came, and someone told a story yesterday that just had me in tears because it described my husband's experience to a T. But he, all of a sudden, when the year anniversary came by, started just churning. What could I have done? How could I have helped them? And my husband, who is just the life of our house almost. He's always playing with kids out back. He cooks dinner every night. Yes, I'm that lucky. Like every single night, he loves to cook. He's the social one out of both of us. Within 3 months, went from that person to someone who was just tormented by his own thoughts. And to the point where one night he said, he wouldn't even take a Tylenol before this, but he said, I'm hearing voices. I don't know what to do. He wouldn't get off the couch. And when it comes to sharing, at that same point, I saw a community, the Cypress initiative that I didn't know anything about at the time, was doing a community kind of, we were doing like a round table for nonprofits, and I was sitting at the round table. And they did a presentation on the Medela Project. And I heard something, I wasn't really kind of clear what it was, but I heard something that I thought might help my husband. And so I followed the poor lady out of the door, and I said, I want to know more. I work with teens as well. I want to know more. And I got into their training program. And I kind of thought it was like, what, these people are nuts, right? And I went home and kind of made fun of it, really. And in my making fun of it, I shared something with my husband that completely transformed his life. And he waited a month, because I was a huge control freak back then. I'm kind of a little less, I would like to think now. But within a month, after about a month, he said, I stopped taking my medication. I feel fine, and I freaked out. I'm like, you can't just stop taking your medicine. And he said, well, I knew you'd say that, so it's been a month. But do you remember in the kitchen that night, and you were making fun of the training you were going to? You said something to the effect of, and basically all I said was 99% of what I think about never actually happens. And I spend 99% of my time in my head, and I never realized it. Something to that effect, which completely transformed his life. And made me go back and look at all the emails that I've been sending. People were sending me videos, and I was like, these people are nuts. I don't know what they're talking about. And I really went back and thought, oh my gosh, So I say all that to say, it really does not matter how you share. I was sharing in a way that was very sarcastic and making fun of somebody, right? And it changed his life. It absolutely changed his life. And I can tell you that my husband does not do this work at all, but I can sit back and listen to him talk about it. And it is like he has been trained by the best of the best in our, he puts me to shame. And I'm like, I hope no one hears him, because I might be out of the job. But he doesn't do the trainings or anything. He just shares from his heart, and he shares from what he saw. And I think that's just the most important piece of sharing. So to answer your question or anyone else's question is, how do I teach this, or how do I share this with my family, or I want them to see I've changed, or anything like that. It's you share what's changed for you. And if it's genuine and from your heart, people will see it.
And I was like you, I wanted to go save the world. I wanted everybody to know this understanding. And I was on welfare when I learned this, living in a housing project with my kids. And I just took my food stamps and bought a bottle of 2-liter soda and a bag of chew and said, come on, y'all got thinking. Y'all thinking, I just went crazy with thinking. And people were getting it by me saying stinking thinking. I didn't even know what principles were. I didn't even name mind, thought, consciousness. I didn't do any of that. I said, girl, all that stuff is in your head. That's all. That's how I taught it. So it's not gonna matter. I think we try to be professionals and make sure we say the words. And I've seen people that come and would say just what Sid say. And when Sid said it, it was felt different than when they say the exact same thing that Sid said. It didn't make sense to me. So it's gonna be your thing. It's gonna be you. And with family, And you know, I have been in the mental hospital, so you already knew my family thought I was crazy. Girl, I'm gonna be traveling all the world. I'm gonna be teaching this. And they were like, did you hear that nut? You know, that's the kind of stuff I was getting. Because, you know, you done been in the mental hospital twice, and now all of a sudden you were getting ready to go, and you come home, and you all excited because you done heard something, and your life changed overnight. People would thought I was crazy. So be careful trying to go and do, because they know your history now. I was a nut for about a good year. They were like, she done really bumped her head. Then they saw me on TV one time. This lady, they did a commercial, a thing on me, and I was sharing in Riverview Terrace housing projects. This man came up, what are you doing? Because I had this group of women, and he took a video of me doing this. And I said, I learned this understanding, changed my life. So then my family saw me on national TV up here telling my story. And they were like, maybe she ain't as crazy, you know. And then they started buying in. But they had to see for themselves. They had to see that I had generally changed. Now I have to hang up the phone on them now. And like, well, you got that wisdom, because now they'll call. But like I said, you can't. They're the hardest when it's somebody that's, I think, the closest. But you just share from your heart like she did. Like I said, you don't know how they're going to get it. It's not getting anything. It's already inside. You don't know when it's going to awaken. You know, it may not even be you. They may be walking down the street and just have an epiphany. You know, I've been doing this long. It's time for me to stop this. We already have it in us. And I think that's the greatest gift we can give people, just knowing that they have it. And just speak to it, not to the behavior or whoever they are. That's how I share. Any more questions?
I would just add to that the context of our professional lives gives us or tries to force us into the way we want people to get it. You know, we're educators. So we have, you know, standards and pacing guides in our heads, and we think, first I'm going to teach them about thought. And in 3 weeks, they're going to get consciousness. And then we're going to, so just be careful that you want to standardize this, and it really so is not that.
No, it's so simple. It's true.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We have a curriculum, and we just throw out the 3 principles like week 2 after we get all of our surveys and stuff out of the way. And then we just don't even go back to it. But we just say it because we, you know, they're going to ask. So they don't say, what are you talking about, principles, or what are, you know, but it's a foundation. But then we just talk to them about their life for the rest of the year and just keep bringing it back. And it's funny because in the office, we're like, we know they're not going to pick up much of what we're putting down week 1. Like, they're like, okay, we're just learning something, you know, like intellectually learning something.
That's what we're teaching.
Yeah.
Not sharing yet.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree. And it's easy to try to fall into a trap of, I've been with this, you know, with the student for 6 months. They should be, you know, what am I doing wrong? Or you think you have some sort of outcome in your mind. That's an easy trick to fall into, as an outcome that you've set up in your mind that you want to see the child rise to, and they're not rising to your outcome. Just good to remind yourself that that's your outcome. It has nothing to do with their life. That's something that you've created.
Yeah, because it won't be our time. It's going to be their time. And I think when we understand that and even give them permission to get it on their time. I'm just planting seed. You know, all we do is go plant seed. You know, it needs to be watered. It needs to be, but they'll do that. We don't have to do that part.
Yeah. I think that goes with education, your questions about pacing and when they get it and all of this stuff. My daughter did kindergarten twice. She was not even ready for the first grade after that. And every time I'd go into conferences, the teachers and the administration, they wanted to test her and they wanted to do all things. I'm like, you can do whatever you want. And she said, you are so laid back, because my child goes to a pretty high standard school. Like, you're really laid back about all of this. Now, they say this because I had another daughter who's now 12 who went to the same school, and a different parent was in the conferences when they were in the school, because I was really like, she should be in this level. And I ran an FCAT and tutoring company at the time, so I was very into achievement. And I just kept saying, she's not going to go to college not knowing her alphabet. She's not. She's not going to go to college not being able to read, because I knew without a shadow of a doubt she had it in her. And I also knew what would take it, like what would bury it. And what would bury it is a whole lot of pressure to get it on my timeline or on their timeline and not on her timeline. And she went from like a reading level 8 to 18 within 4 months in the last part of the first grade, which is unheard of. This year I go into the conference, or I go to the beginning of the year conference, and the teacher, and I said, they were supposed to test her like 6 months ago, but at the end of last year, she's going through all the files. She's like, they said, I don't see any testing paperwork. She's not lined up for a test. And she said, I wouldn't test her. Had you not told me that, she doesn't need any testing. I'm like, okay. But I just can't imagine, thinking that we can fall into that trap in education where they have to hit these milestones and these timelines, and then they lost the fact that she was supposed to be tested. I'd have been at the school board had it not been for what I know. Like, they have it in them. Their timeline is their timeline. It takes a lot of pressure off.
And my only job is to plant the seeds.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Yeah, questions?
Yeah, when we share the principles, we speak from our experiences and from our heart. If you're teaching, do you have an outline or a structure or any kind of curriculum for things you specifically follow?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So we have an entire curriculum full of activities, and we go off script constantly.
Yes.
But we have, we kind of gauge what's going on in the classroom, and we have different ways we show them thought. We use, Helen loves this, we use Play-Doh, we use crafts and arts and, all sorts of different ways. Helen likes to talk. She goes with origin.
So
I like the
Don't play with the
activities.
kids.
More of the activity.
Yeah, they do the kids. I do the high school if I need them.
Yeah.
They're getting ready for adulthood. I gotta get them ready. I'm on a mission.
But really, it's just like teaching. You're showing them something,
Yeah.
and then you're talking about it. It's conversation catalysts.
And a lot of times they'll share from their experiences too. Once they hear our stories, then they'll start showing up with their stories and like, oh, I can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
So
And the other thing about teaching, because when you get so caught up in the curriculum, you can get off track. Because I know when we first got the curriculum, we tried to stick to it. It wasn't working. But we had to get creative with the curricula. Even though we came up with it, we had to come, because some kids that we work with, I won't name the principals in the room, but kids that we work with, they weren't having that stand there and just talk to them. They were going to have a sidebar conversation, a sidebar fight or two. They were going to be doing everything else. So I was like, we got to do something different with them. So we started finding ways, and we came back to the table. That's why our curriculum is always changing. We have to come back to the table. Okay, now these kids are not going to stand for this. The teachers, the urban teachers that we're working with, yes, we can do that with them because they're teachers. They're looking for that. But with these kids, we got to play Jeopardy. I stand up there. This is Helen Sajak, and this is Nicole White, and we're here to do Jeopardy or whatever, Wheel of Fortune,
yeah.
a Wheel of Steam, and we'll use self-esteem words and stuff. So you have to be creative, and that's what's the power of this understanding. It'll take you where you need to go.
Yeah.
If you see you losing them in the curricula, we have to jump ship. So one day Ashley said, well, they're not really getting this. And me and Nicole said, well, we playing hangman with them. You know, we didn't threw the curriculum down, we're playing hangman. So you have to be able to move and do whatever is gonna get those kids. And still getting the point across, because even though we're not using the curriculum, we're using the words and the terms, we're still getting the same result that we wanted if we would have just stood there and talked to them. That makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah. 'Cause you gotta come to where they are, because you know, sometimes it's hard to bring them up to our level.
I think it's just like, especially with youth, even if you get a group of kids, it's very rare that you get a group of kids that like woke up in the morning and said, I'm gonna go see Brooke today and sit down. I'm really interested in what he's got to say about this. It's not like this kind of room. It's not this kind of audience.
Yeah.
So you have to, you know, create that, like we talked about, the connection and really listen to them and the rapport before you try to give them anything.
Could you say a little bit about how you guys can tell when they're getting it, when they're really getting it versus they're just able to kind of repeat back the information, that they're just able to, they know the terms, right? They know,
Yeah.
so they got the intellectual piece of it. But and I think you kind of answered this question, Nicole, but you could say a little more about that, you know, when they share it in their own words and how you can tell that it's clicking with them.
Can you share that story about that? You say, like, how did your spark help you? Was it not you? Was it Ashley?
Yeah.
Which one was it?
Will you share Ashley's story?
I don't know what the story is.
When you say, like, how did your spark help you? And the guy, so we go into class and say, like, how did your spark help you? Does anyone have any stories? And we can kind of see what they're getting at. Were you in the class with the?
Oh, with Carlos?
Yeah.
Okay. So we asked them, like, you know, what'd you do over the weekend? Is there anything that, you know, your spark kind of guided you out of? And he told us a story about his dad was an alcoholic and he always tried to fight him. And how did it go?
Right, well, that's another story.
He walked
That's not
away.
the story. Oh,
That's not
so
the
he
one.
said, he was like, my
That was
spark
she said.
told me to not fight him. My spark told me to just go
Leave.
outside, walk around, get away from him, avoid my dad. And he said his dad still tried to fight him and was following him around, but he said that he knew it was wrong and that his wisdom was telling him, I just need to walk away from him because he's drunk. So that was a really touching story.
Another story that was really good, we do a career center where there are teenage moms that is in this center, and this one girl came in and she was like, you know, I'm just so frustrated, nobody helps me with my education and all this. She was just really upset. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, really? And so we kind of pull it out of them, whatever, because that's the thing, we want them to know that spark is in there. So she was saying, they don't help me with my work and my family don't do this. And I said, but whose education is it? And she go, well, it's mine. And I was like, okay. And then she said, well, I said, but who you think need to help you? You know, what do you think you need help with? And she said, just getting to school on time. I said, oh. And then she said, well, what else you think you do? Doing my homework? She was just pointing out all of the stuff that she needed to do. And then finally she realized, wait a minute, it ain't their business anyway, it's my business. I need to go ahead and do what I need to do. She graduated. She got in there, she started doing her work, and next thing I know, she was graduating with her class. And so what we don't so much point, but we see it. But what I do, I won't say, oh, see you using your spark. I wait till they see it, because you can tell me I have something all day long, but until I know it, it's not gonna matter.
So that's like connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Once they start seeing it, where we just kind of go, you see why that worked like that? Or do you see why that happened like that? So for Carlos, his story.
He realized it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you kind of showed her where it was.
Exactly. And then with another young lady that when we first came to class, very rude to the teacher. This is me and Jenna's story. Very, she had a little boyfriend come in one day and bring her breakfast in the classroom, just interrupted the ladies' classroom, walked in, bought her breakfast. And I was like, no, she didn't. You know how we be thinking. I'm like, you know, she didn't. You know, so I didn't say that. You know how we be going. No, she didn't. But anyhow, so she comes in and the teacher gets up and she says, you're not supposed to do that. And she goes, oh, miss, I missed this. So when we started really getting into the curriculum, 'cause we had just got this. This was like probably our first and second day there. But she would do this, and she went maybe about 3 weeks into that. But then she started getting quiet, and she started paying attention. And then she said, Miss, can I pass out the books? I was like, sure, yeah, you can pass out the books. Miss, can I do this? So I was like, wow. So I told Jen, I said, look, she's changing. She's getting this. She's really getting it. So sometimes they don't tell you, but you see it. So then at near the end, I was like, what did you we always ask the kids at the end, we do a survey and we ask them, what did you get out of this? And she said, well, I didn't really get in. I said, you didn't see nothing different? She said, no, but my mom told me I am so nice. I'm such a better person than that. We were like, yes, we see it too, yeah. And then she didn't realize it. So the change is so subtle that you don't realize it. And a lot of us, we didn't realize that we were making change. Because I even with me, I was, I don't do that no more. Oh, she said that to me, and that would use it. Oh, what you said, I wasn't even doing that anymore. It just didn't matter. Because it's us. It's who we are. It's how we work. So a lot of times you won't, they may not say it, but, something's going on.
And I think that's so true. Like, as adults, we have these big epiphanies. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I felt that. And kids are just like, oh, cool.
Yeah, they don't even see it.
All right, and they just get on with their business.
Yeah, they don't even see it.
Yeah. Kind of half comment, half question, but oftentimes there's this idea that youth, the children, that it's going to be harder to get across to them because they're not as maybe not as intellectually smart, maybe they don't have as much life experience or whatever. My experience has been the opposite.
Yeah.
Could you say a little more about why you think that is, or what y'all's experience been with that? I mean, the difference between teaching a group of social workers versus a group of preteens. Could you say a little bit?
I think it's easy. They're so much more present. So they're already don't have layers and layers of what should be and what could be. So they connect with you. I mean, so many times it takes so much less effort for me to connect with a kid than it does an adult. Mm-hmm. And I mean, even in the neighborhood, like we are all friends in my neighborhood. We hang out all the time in the streets, and I can have some deep conversation with the kids. And there's some adults that I have never even gotten past the surface, and we hang out all the time, right? Because there's just so much thinking going on. So like when you guys were talking about the bars, you're on 5 bars. 9 times out of 10, the kids can't even be on 0 bars for very long because they live at a different level than we do.
And they don't have all these ideas and shoulda, coulda, wouldas that we have, or that we've been told, So I think that's it. They don't. Oh, Miss, that's all I got. It's just my thinking.
And then another thing that I think they see really quickly, like with Carlos's story, he saw, oh, my dad's just drunk. It's not personal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like they see other people. They see that really quickly. Like, oh, that's what's going on with my teacher. Not that she hates me. She's just got a lot of stuff on it. So that's one of the first things that we see in classes that kids really get is, oh, the adults are really jacked up. It's not about me.
When you said that, we had a little teacher that loved our program. She really got it. We had 3 classes of hers, and she was into yoga and everything, and she was really sweet, Miss Weathers. I love her to death. She's awesome. But this one day, and we all have bad days. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I'm happy all day. I have some pretty days that I say I don't even want to hear you today. Don't be trying to tell me practice what you preach. I don't want to hear that. There are days that we have those days we don't want to go there. We want to do whatever. So she came in. She must have had a bad day, a bad night, or weekend, or whatever. So one of the kids said, Miss Worth, and she said yes. She was real. That day. He said, now you need to really work the wheel because your spark is way off today. And all she could do was laugh, and she looked at me and Ashley, and we just had our head on. We just couldn't. I just put my head down. I was like, oh, she looked at us like, yeah, y'all did this, but they know, they just know, and they knew that she was off, and the whole class just laughed, and it just brought her back up. And that even them saying that just kind of brought just brought the whole class up.
And that's such a great example because that teacher was going to leave. She was young, and she was only in the field for about 5 years, and she was going to quit that year. And she's still teaching. We even offered her a job after, and she was like, "No, I got to stay teaching." And I think that's like the biggest success when you can keep good teachers in the classroom.
And they need it because she was real good.
So, obviously I'm new to it. So you said Spark, and I saw somebody had Spark as an acronym out there.
Yeah, that's
And
our
wheel.
program.
What book would I read to understand that's a part of the teachings, obviously?
That's part of our curriculum.
That's yours. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, so when we're teaching the kids, we tell them a thought gives you a feeling, you get a behavior, and there's a result, and that's like a will.
I see.
But we went a step further, that now we have what's called a thought chain. I don't know if any of you have our curriculum, you might see it. But we say a thought and a feeling goes together. You can't break them. If you have a negative thought, you have a negative feeling. But right here, when it comes to the behavior and the result, you can break that chain.
Right.
Because you can have a thought and a feeling, but you don't have to ever do the behavior.
Yes.
And then that chops off the result. So now we show them the chain reaction with it too. So that kids can see that that's different. Yeah, because they think because with the circle and what we saw, I got to keep doing it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The chain. Yes.
Right. And so we can't do up with that. And that's why I say when we go through our curricula, it's always something we got to change because the kids will get stuck on the wheel.
Yeah.
They were going around because if I have one negative thought, and I'm going like, oh yeah, you and then I'm going again, and it's the same thing. So we got to figure out a way to break this, and that was where the change.
That's good. I like
the action came in, and the kids understand that I can break that. I don't have to do that.
Yeah, it's a visual way to look at it.
And then the kids are visual, and I think that's another thing that because I'm very visual. I got hands when I need to see it, touch it, feel it. I'm just visual, and a lot of the kids are visual, and I think a lot of the problems that teachers have with kids. They're talking to them and just telling them, and they're not getting it. They need to see it, feel it, touch it, So let them touch some things, some music things. And I touch that. I'm messing with the hands for real. You ready to put it in the hand now? I'm putting it in the hand. So they're visual. So that's another way that some kids need more help with, even what they're, like I'll use my daughter for a good example. And this one, I didn't even know about the principles, but my son is a musician, so he plays the keyboard. My daughter was having a terrible time with her spelling, where she was failing her spelling test, but she was always singing. Every time we turned around, she knew every song on the radio, and I said, how can you, and I'm getting frustrated, this was way back when they were in elementary school. And I said, how you can know all these songs, every word, but you can't do the spelling test. So then my son overheard us, and the next thing I know, I heard him in the living room with the keyboard, and he was teaching her how to do her spelling words to music.
Yes.
And she started making A's.
Yes.
A's. And from there on, she went up. And so he said, just think about the beat. And then she started learning her words with beats. So kids learn differently. And I think that's the other thing. We put all these kids in a box. And we think everybody thinks the same. Everybody. It's going to work this way because it worked this way for me. It's going to work this way for you, and that's not true. That's not true.
So, I've been hearing a lot over the weekend about, sort of the push and pull between sort of an out-of-box way to approach teaching and then all the requirements that a school board will have and the state will have and the feds will have.
Right.
And so, how do you address that directly? And I guess maybe James can talk to this because it came up yesterday too, and I don't really feel like I got an answer to how because it seems like really the best way to teach would be to be open to whatever the wisdom in the moment's going to tell you, and that
sparks a lot of creativity, right? I mean, and that's not something that you can write down and every time this happens, you do X, Y, and Z, you know, it's like every time this happens, you wait for an answer to come. That seems to be more where we're going
I'd
to.
love for you to answer that.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
So you're really right where I would go with it. The goal for me is for my folks, my teachers, and my staff to be healthy people. Now, what I'd love to do is spend, and Brooke will kind of chuckle with this, if Florida never has another hurricane, I'm sure we'll be happy people because our PD schedule will be uninterrupted and we'll be able to teach the principals. But we've also addressed a little bit how it's so much easier to guide young people through the process of getting it because they don't have all of this stuff built up. And Brooke will probably remember our first introductions or even trying to get with our staff to start talking about these. You know, there was this whole, what are you trying to do? Why are you trying to get in my head? Sort of deal that adults have. All of that to say, I'm now happy with the idea that my staff can see kids, the most distressed students in our district, making some change in relatively short periods of time, improving, overcoming, realizing some health in themselves. I think that's the best way for us to address those same issues in the adults in the building. Now, I would love for that to be a really quick fix, something that I can prescribe, but you're right, it's not going to work that way. But if we can, person for person, provide an opportunity for our staff to become a healthier person in the, between the ears and in their spirit, and they're going to be able to keep.
I guess my question is like, is it mutually exclusive to follow whatever the state or the regulators are telling you to do, but at the same time be loose enough to bring something fresh to it? You know, are they mutually exclusive? Is there a way to get around it?
I think they can be mutually exclusive depending on what your school level leadership is. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to tell you that I have some colleagues that it would probably be very difficult to be able to have a classroom where it doesn't look very much like they've prescribed. That's not who I am as a leader. So,
you know what occurs to me is that what I found is when you get into things like standards and regulations is that just like scripture, there's interpretations, and you have some leaders who are able to very loosely interpret the standards to make it fit, and then there's some that are very rigid in their relationship to the standards, and they're like, no, it's got to be this way, this is what it says. And so going back to what you were saying about the leaders grounding and leaders feeling secure with things being a little bit more vague, maybe more ethereal, so to speak. They're being comfortable with that helps them to say, well, I know this is helpful and I'm behind it. And if anybody above me questions me, I have a way that I can say, well, look, this is how we're meeting it, and I can stand behind it. But it goes back to the security of the leader to feel grounded enough. I mean, I have that same thing at the hospital where they're, technically speaking, teaching the principle is not considered evidence-based. If you wanted to, by the strict definition, and if you had someone Googling it and looking at all evidence-based practices, and so what I would do is I would say I'm not even playing the same ball game, so I wouldn't even call it therapy. I would just, and even evidence-based practices take time. Anything innovative is not going to be evidence-based, right? So, but when the rubber meets the road, it's a rare time that someone says you can't do something because it's not this way. I mean, we think a lot about that as grown-ups, but people want results, and if they see
That's what I
that
was
the
thinking.
kids are changing or that people are more laid back, they ultimately don't really care that much about the
Right.
standards.
Okay.
And that means that, you know, if you're not writing referrals, students are passing your class, and they're getting their work done, and you're not getting
You're
complaints,
gonna meet
your building level administrator is probably not going to bother.
and you're gonna meet those standards.
Yeah.
Because if the kids are calmed down and you're not stressed out and they're not stressed out, you're gonna meet those. I perform more now since I learned these principles. I do a whole lot more than what I did when I was depressed and taking Xanax and Tophanel and all over here. I wasn't functioning. And I'm 60 and I do more than I did at 38. You know, so it's they would meet those standards. Because even with the teacher that we were talking about, her class was just off the chain. And then Miss Eisenhower, last year we had a seventh grade class. They took some tests, and that class that we were in, she had 7 classes, and the class that we were in was the only class that passed, made 100 across the board. The only thing different from those other 6 classes and this one is they were taking it in the Spark program. They were taking that and it took them up.
It's the idea, like the closer any teacher or administrator or any person can see the true health in the kids that they're working with, they're gonna draw that out of them. So that the outcomes and the potential in the child it's gonna raise. And that's really all school systems are set up to do, is raise. So they just have it backwards. So they just think they're going to raise in December, and then in January 15th, they're going to raise here, and then, but I just think the more even a parent can get away from the idea that it's supposed to be on a certain timeline, the less they're going to put that pressure on the kid, and the more their natural ability is just going to rise up. I remember when I first learned this, someone said, isn't it funny how, because my daughter was having a terrible time in math, and so we had her in all this extra tutoring, and someone asked me, one of my teachers asked me, like, well, what is she good at? I said, she loves to write, she loves reading, she loves the arts, she loves to draw. And he said, isn't it funny that we take all of that for granted and we spend all of our extra time focusing on what they're not so good at? Because I had her in all this extra tutoring and all this extra stuff, like math every day. And I thought, oh my gosh, I am highlighting what she's struggling with. Like, how is that even helpful? And since then, like, she gets B's and C's in math. She struggles a little bit, but she'll come to me and say, hey, Mom, I need some extra help with this now. Rather than me saying, you have to do better, you have to do better. And it's just such a different way to look at education. They will come to you, like, they'll figure out, oh, I do need extra help.
I think we all have a tendency to, when we get insecure and overwhelmed or distressed, we'll resort back to previous state, right? To a lower level of functioning. But one of the things we'll get more rigid in our structure. We'll want to make things more structured because that, in theory, will bring us more security. So with parenting, we say, we're having a hard time, so we got to buckle it down. We'll have a come to Jesus talk. We'll make sure it's right. Or in the classroom, you know what? I've got all this pressure, and I've got all these standards, and it's so complex to do all the things that we need to do. Like my wife, she's a first grade teacher, and she's constantly trying to figure out her schedule, and then they say, oh, well, and now we're going to have an assembly. Well, that throws off her whole day. And in the classroom, you've got minute to minute. It's like 11:28, we're doing this, right? And then 2:31, we're, So it's really complex. And so the more that the teacher or the therapist at the hospital or the business leader, the more that they are present and clear and have the big picture at heart, the vision, what's the point, then a lot of the logistics don't matter as much, and you don't have to be as rigid, because you can still say, okay, what's the essence of what we're trying to do? But when we get in fight or flight mode, we can't be responsive to the moment. There's no space for that. So it's like, you know what? Yeah, it would be nice. And this is the devil's advocate. When they first hear this, they're like, yeah, it's easy for you to say, but you don't know the kids I'm dealing with, or you don't know the demands. In my field, well, you don't work at DHR. That's our child protective service. Well, you don't work at DHR, so you don't get it, right? But for them, that's what their world looks like. It's hard to imagine being responsive. It's hard to imagine not being overwhelmed. So we start, I think that's what you guys are saying, we start there and clear the air a little bit, and then meeting the standards kind of happen.
Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, help you good.
I think that actually sometimes we're confused about how to do it, because I believe my principal, we're a D school, and he put it to the metal trying to say, we gotta do this, we gotta plan. Teachers were stressed, unbelievable. We didn't really go up that much. And then, of course, we're doing the restorative practice to see if that's gonna help with the behavior issues. And then we had teachers who went to Ron Clark to see what he's doing with the city schools, and how we can teach. So he's trying to help that, but then they're still rigid with the timing, what you have to do, what you have to teach them, how you have to teach it. So it's almost like, I think teachers are probably spinning around, not knowing exactly what to do, because you still have the regular way that we're trying to do it. He's trying to incorporate this new way. So I don't know. I take my hat off to classroom teachers. I'm trying to figure out how to help them do what they do through music, because I know that is powerful.
And I think it just goes back to the level at which you know, or that any teacher knows, or any worker knows where their experience is coming from, is the level at which they'll be able to connect with the students. So if they think that the stress and all of the demands are really coming from the administrator, then that's going to feel like a lot of pressure. It's going to feel like a lot of pressure. But I guarantee there's like one or two teachers in your school that kind of just let it slide off the back.
They don't take it that serious, and they perform. Because he's getting it from up here too.
Yes,
You gotta remember, he's not just doing it
Right.
just to do it. He's got it coming from up here, and then it's coming up here. It's a chain reaction how it's coming. But it's not what you get, it's how you
That's
see what you
performance
get.
in life though.
Yeah.
Like moment to moment, the level at which I can see where my experience is coming from is how I'll be able to deal with whatever I'm facing. And it's a trick. It's back and forth all the time. Like, I remember when I first learned this, like I said, I was a bit of a control freak. Like, oh gosh, all the fights that I have with my husband, kind of on me. Like, I saw that at a deep level, and it was really, really humbling. And so I'd go home, and he would kind of make fun of me at first, because I'd be like, I told you not to put the dishes in the dishwasher like that. And he was like, looking at me going, is that really what's going on right now? I'm like, oh, yeah, it's not about you putting the dishes in the dishwasher. It's about how revved up I am about whatever, and it doesn't even matter, but it has nothing to do with the dishes, and it certainly doesn't have anything to do with you. So in the classroom, it's the same thing, or at work. I mean, there are times where I look at my budget and I can get myself, there's only X amount of dollars, and there's 4 months left in the year. And if I go there, that's where I'll spend my time. But productive ideas about how to make more money don't come from that place. Right. Productive ideas on how to get a student that's really struggling to reach a milestone don't come from, I gotta do this, that headspace. So it's just something that you'll have to experience for yourself. But once you see, oh, that's me. Like the moment you see that, like that's me in one of those kind of stressful moments, it just dissipates a little bit. Doesn't mean it goes away, but the pressure and the seriousness kind of I laugh at myself, you know, it's like, oh, there you go, okay. I'll be mid-fight with my husband and realize it, and I'll be like, okay, we just gotta stop. This is, and he's like, no, we're not stopping. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm just sorry, because none of this is about you. And he's like, oh, well, you said 5 seconds ago. And I'm like, I know, I'm really sorry. Because it's me. It's the glass I'm looking through. It's not him. You know, I really want it to be him, or you really want it to be your boss. It's just not.
I was just gonna address real quickly, 2 things kind of coming together in the same place, because we're just kind of referring to when it flows, you know, and it's not one of those stressful situations connected to the whole D-school situation. We had state oversight at our school and planning, and we had these barriers that we needed to come up with some strategies about it. We'd be in the room with the leadership team planning and looking at the data, trying to come up with something and really come up with, and then we would leave at the end of that day with something that no one really felt good about, but it was something. And then various people, sometimes me, sometimes other folks on the leadership team, would be jogging, cooking, doing nothing, if it's playing with their dog, and then all of a sudden, boom, oh, we can just. And it's so funny to me how it had to happen outside of that situation. So the very thing that we were trying to do to solve the problem was keeping us from solving the problem. And once we got ourselves out of that situation, everyone involved in it was able to allow something to come through. Which was a much more viable, reasonable, functional solution.
And that just so points to your own, that's what we call your spark, your wisdom. And the kids have that too. If we can just give them enough headspace, enough, you know, when they're under pressure, I see it so much with my kids. When they're under pressure, we're doing some homework or something, I'm like, nope, not right now. Because it's pointless. In that space, it's pointless to try to teach them.
It almost sounds like kind of visual while you were talking about the old, talk about think tanks. It reminds me of what you're in a think tank and you're locked in a think tank.
Yeah.
And until you stop thinking and you get out of the think tank. But I feel like as an adult, I've learned a think tank is a good thing. You're just going to think tank, right? Throw ideas around and throw a bunch of stuff and until you get out of the thinking aspect of it. I don't know, sorry.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. Because what we don't realize is we have that built into us. It will come from us. And that's the other part of what we teach to kids is we're not going to tell you what to do or how to think or how to behave or what you should do next. Because you have all that. That's in you. You have to learn to listen to that and trust it.
Do you have any stories can you speak to, because of course I'm still stuck in my own head and thinking about my own experience. We had kids that drove you crazy.
My children.
Let's go with that. Let's go with your children. And at what point were you able to let go of your impression of them?
Oh, I have a great story about my child, and I'm sure you have.
Yeah,
you both have plenty of stories, so I'll shut up. But my oldest daughter, she's 12 now. When she was born, she was like silent for 4 years. She was one of those babies that we would take to church, and everyone would be like, "She's so good." Go to a restaurant, "She's so good." So you get this, right? So for 4 years, that was my child.
You're like,
yeah. And then I had my second child. And I thought I had parenting down. Like I was parent of the year. If you need help with your child sleeping, I will come teach you how to get them to sleep. And then we have our second child, and her nickname is Taz. Like that's her nickname, right? We were gonna try for a boy until a year went by, and my husband was like, "Oh no, we're tapped out, right?" She just does. She goes from the moment her eyes open to the moment she just passes out. My child is just going. Like that's the only way I can describe her. And in 2014, I was at my first conference, and I was in kind of like a group with a teacher, Jack Pransky. And I had this question, like, okay, I get it, right? Like, this was me. I get it. I get it's all coming from me. But what do you do about, like this? She just doesn't stop. And like, there's got to be something like and I think I said something about she's crazy. Like, she's crazy. She drives me absolutely bonkers. And he just looked at me and he said, said something to the effect, I'm probably going to get it wrong, but what I heard, I'll just say what I heard was, you're looking at her like she's crazy. And she is the most free-spirited, like she's what we want to be as adults. Not a care in the world. That's what we strive for. And in your lens of her is crazy. Because compared to, quiet over here, she was. But from that moment, I see her as like a little light that just bumbles around. I mean, but she is so carefree. So there's so not anything on her mind. And years later, now I see my quiet kid has so much going on sometimes in her head. And that free spirit that she has is just her being her. She is in her natural state all the time. And I think we want them to be adults sometimes as kids, and then when kids grow up, we strive to act like kids again. So like as adults, we're dying to be kids, but as kids, we're pushing them to be adults.
Yeah. One kid that, like I said, I do middle school, high school, and Ashley was out. They were in California, and I had encountered this little fella in the office. He was very rude. He was just, I was like, I know what he needs. I know what he needs. So he's just cutting up with the officer. He's cutting up with his teacher. She got to run behind him and all this. So Ashley's out of town. So guess who got to go do him this week? So I go in the classroom and I'm already ready. Okay, now he's not gonna be rude to me. I'm just not even gonna put up with this. We're gonna do. So we were showing a video. So when I got in there, we had a little video, just me and him in the classroom. And he turns off my computer. I mean, he just right in the middle, just wow. And he just turned it off. And I was like, did you just turn off that computer? Yeah, and if you turn it back on, I'm gonna turn it back on. I said, okay, we'll see. I turned it back on. So then we sitting there watching, and then he said, yeah, I'm Haitian now. I said, oh, I love a French man. Do you speak Creole? And he goes, yes, whatever he said. I don't even know what he said. And he said, whatever, some little French thing. He said, I said, oh man, that just turned me on. He was like, and then next thing you know, we sitting there and we doing the lesson. You remember that? We do.
Blueberry.
He started doing the lesson, so we finished the lesson. He went through and we went to talk, and I was like, wow. It just flipped him because he was waiting for me to come back at him in a different way and, demand. And we went through the whole little lesson. And after he showed me this little thing he made, something like a little fidget spinner, but it was made out of paper. So I said, oh, that's neat. Did you make that? He said, yeah, I made it. He said, I'm going to make you one. I said, for real, man? He said, yeah, come back. So before we left the school, I went back and he made me one, and he had painted it. It was all colored. I was just blown away. Because my first impression, I got to deal with him. I'm going to go ahead. I know this is going to be, it was really nice. He sat there, we did it, and then he even had a present waiting on me when I finished the rest of the day to come back by and pick it up. And I told the teacher, I said, I'm coming in. She said, oh yeah, honey, he done painted yours. He have you a nice some little paper thing that had, what do you call them? They call them, it's the name for it.
Flippers, they go like this.
Yeah, but it doesn't do anything. It's just like, I don't know, he had a name for it, whatever it was. But I had the best time with him. And that's another thing, when we go in with this expectation of what's gonna happen, that can draw it out. And then just the word Haitian, all I thought of was French. Let me think of some kind of way to to switch that thing around. And when I did it, he switched it. He was so proud. Then he started speaking. I don't know what he was saying. Might have been cussing me out, but I was saying, that sounds really good. He probably was. Oh, you know who I'm talking about. It probably was cussing me out. And I'm like, oh, that sounds so good. Like.
Well, it's also like the same thing with our daughter. Now that I know what I know, like I can tell. Me and my husband, we'll look at each other like, who wants to take on bedtime? Because she, like I said, she's going until she's not. And I call it fuel to the fire, right? Like if you're not in a good state with her and you're about to ask her to do something she's not going to want to do, am I going to fuel that fire? All right, I check out today because it's just her. It's her nature, and she knows how to
feed
do it.
into it.
Yeah, I mean, believe me, we feed into it a lot. But when we're there and aware enough of where we are, we can show up to her a lot better. And if I fuel the fire, bedtime is like an hour-long screaming match. If I go in, if we're present enough and we can go in there, it takes 5-10 minutes. But it's just a matter of who's showing up to her.
Just so you know, that was me growing up.
Was that you?
I still am.
Did you flip through the office when you come to visit your mom? Because she tumbles from the front all the way to the back.
Yes, she does.
Hey, by my office.
Like, I can hear it. Gabrielle is here.
Yeah, Energizer Bunny.
Yeah.
They call me that. So she'll be fine.
I know.
But you know what? There she is.
She's really worried
But it's funny because now I worry so much less about her than I do my oldest daughter.
The good one.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
The one that's conforming, I have so much more about like going on about her than the one that just does not care.
Something that's bringing to mind for me that really helped me working with young children, especially, even the same with middle school, high school, is I used to have this idea that my job was to teach them. And when I started orienting myself to what can I learn from them, because kids teach us more about being present, about enjoying life. And I'm teaching them about stuff that's important, but to just seeing, people would ask me, well, how are you able to work in that setting for so long and hear all those sad stories and to see the content of how are you able to do it for so long and not get burned out? And I would always say, well, it was really easy to see how resilient they were and how much I can learn from them that hey, they're out there in the yard and they don't have a football, so one of them takes their shoe off and they're playing football and they're having fun. And it was like, or they're dancing. There's no self-consciousness. I have to have a certain amount of beer in me before I dance. And they just, and they, my daughter, she's 6 and she's high energy too. And so, I mean, she never stops. She never stops. And she runs everywhere. And I was like, I had this thought, what if we ran everywhere like you?
Oh, yeah.
Imagine, I mean.
We all be napping right now.
But there's something about that. Talk about the spark and that light. When you see that in them and you have this, like, what can I learn from them?
Yeah.
Not what can I get across to you? When it comes to well-being, honestly, children know more than we do about well-being.
They're closer to it.
They can't express it, but they live it. And so that, when you engage them at that level, it helps you to not threaten them or to feel like you're against them or that you know something. You don't get high and mighty with them about it. And then they're more willing to listen to you.
It's really true. I'm about to take in 3 other children. So my brother-in-law that lost his life, we just found out they're in foster care and we're going through the whole process of bringing them in. And the parent I was 2 years ago even would have been like, we're at the max. We have no more, we cannot bring kids into the house. Like, done, I'm done parenting. I actually can't wait till they get to college so I can be free again. And that's just how I was. But I am so surprised at how excited I am about them coming. And I don't know them, so it's not like I have a huge bond with them, but what I can just see is they're going to, I said this, maybe you the other day, it's like, I can't wait to see what they teach me.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems like they're gonna teach me so much about what the work I already do. And exactly what you're saying, I'm so excited about that.
And we excited too, because I can't wait.
I know.
Because she got backup too. Okay, we need babysitter.
Take her to school.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
But I just know that they're like they're what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
They have been through, they saw their father kill himself. They've been through the trauma that we talk about. They've been through foster care. But I just already know that they're gonna be living examples of what I already know is in kids. That health inside of them. And they're gonna just make me a better teacher.
Yeah, they're gonna be good. We got them.
That reminds me, if you want to test your ability, your grounding, coach soccer for 5 years. And I'm coaching my son's team, and principal base, yeah, we're here. Right? But, one of the things that they said, at this age, you want them to enjoy soccer. You just want them to have fun. So, yeah, you want to teach them stuff, whatever. But if they don't have fun, they're not going to play next time. So it's really a matter of just setting the tone. Soccer's fun. And then one of the things he said really struck me, and he said, you have to have fun with them in order for them to have fun, right? And it was really a matter of my orientation going in. Like, I need to have fun with these kids. I don't need to worry about the fact that there are parents out there. I need to be silly. I need to just be outside of my head and be with them. And this is a coach that, for all I know, he's never heard of the principles, but he knows about soccer and about how to engage kids. And he knows that kids are going to have more fun if you're having fun. And it made me think okay, and I've got a couple of kids, one in particular that is off the bell curve. He's the kid that just, he shows up and you're like, he has not had his meds today. And then his mom's like, yeah, he doesn't have his meds, and it just, it's going to be crazy. Got his head literally this week stuck in the soccer net. So stick his head in and he's like, so it's nuts. And I thought about that child, and I was talking to his parents, and they were like, I know he's kind of tough, and he said, he is so full of life, and that he lives his emotions just on sleep. He's raw, and he's good feedback for me about how well I'm engaging. So if I'm losing him, I need to enjoy them more. It was so I think your kids that are kind of off the spectrum, and they're on the your outer group, those are your ones that tell you where you are pretty well. It's kind of okay, I've got to, in order for this kid to stay engaged, I really have to up my game, and I think it keeps me honest and it grounds me. So as much as and now when I'm struggling, the kids that are off the bell curve, that it makes it more difficult. I dread it, and I'm just like, but the opposite is true too. So I think speaking from an engagement standpoint, expecting to be touched by them and enjoying them and looking forward to, if you enjoy them, then they're going to come out. And I can sense that you guys, I can sense that you love the kids that you're with. You love them. Yeah. And that's coming through, and you're sharing, you're giving examples of how you enjoy these kids that you're with. And that's touching to me. I can sense it.
Oh, thank you.
Another question, and going back to something you said earlier. How do we get a sense of asking the right questions to pull it out of them? There was something that you were saying, some discourse you had with one of the young ladies, and you were able to ask the questions that helped to engage her. And I know you may say that's going to come naturally, but
what it is, I knew the answers, and I knew she knew the answers. So sometimes what we do, we try to give them the answers. So since I knew the answers, what she was going to say when I asked the questions, I knew she was gonna soon get that I was asking her questions where she was getting it. Cause I already knew, I could have went this way. It's your education. It's your responsibility. You need to do your homework. And if you want to graduate, this is how you're gonna do it.
That's my speech all the time.
I could have did it. But what I did for her, because I wanted her to come up with that, Mr. Hurd.
You're right.
So I asked the question,
I understand.
whose education? But that, because I already knew the answers.
But what
to it.
happens if I don't? So, I see so many students, so I'm trying to see if I can be prompted.
But I knew when she asked me, it just came to me. Well, I know because she was saying, who's gonna help me?
We need the spark for teachers and the spark for parents and the spark for hair.
No, it works. No, the spark works with all of it. It goes across.
Lisa and then
Yeah.
Anita.
I just, what came up for me was just to get curious.
Yeah,
Because you may not know what the answer is.
exactly.
But
They'll
if
know.
you're curious and you just keep
Mhm.
asking questions until she hears it or you hear it, and then you know what question to ask. I mean, you will find the answer.
It's really good because I have a sticky on my computer that says "Get curious."
Yeah, because it's no formula.
There's
It's
a
no-
cartoon bee or something, isn't there? Somebody's made up the curious bee or something, or dragonfly.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
But
Principles,
Curious
dragon.
World.
yeah, but that was it. It was just asking questions.
Yeah, it's just about.
Anita.
Anita.
I think Anita has.
I struggle with that a lot, because I can see it, I know exactly, I can just see, right,
And you
that's
wanna
the
tell.
problem. Yeah, and so what I kind of, not that I do this, but what I try is like just pause and ask, because I always want to just tell, and it's just kind of say, take a pause, just a minute, and then I know, but it's the, I can just see it, and I just want to jump right in, you know,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of like just back off a second and then think, okay, how do I make this a question instead of a statement?
Yeah.
That's that's my answer. I'm struggling with it. I'm trying to learn how to do it because I do it and then I go after, I could have said it like that, and I just see so clearly after I'm out of the thing. And I think it's just because I'm so on it.
But sometimes it's not gonna be even what you say. I have a friend that passed away. She died of cancer, and I went to visit. And this was the craziest thing that ever popped in my head for me to say, and somebody got it. So it's not gonna be kind of what you say. So we celebrate the same month of our birthday. Her birthday was June 6th and mine was the 14th. So she lived in Philadelphia. And I would go to Philadelphia. One year we go celebrate her birthday in Philadelphia. Then one year she'll come to Tampa. So it was my year to go to Philadelphia. So when I got there, she was already dealing with cancer. And she was all just nervous when I got it. She said, oh, girl, I was going with this guy, and now she was a teacher. So I was going with this guy, and now he started going with this other teacher at the same school. This guy's playing these teachers at the school, and he decided to marry this other one. But he was going with my friend, and they had broke up. But the other teacher didn't know about it. So this whole conversation I'm there to enjoy our birthdays. So the whole time I'm hearing is about how this guy is probably telling this lady about how they were together. I said, no, Cheryl, I don't think that he's gonna do that. So then she just kept on. Now we're at the restaurant. We're eating. We're getting ready to eat. I'm trying to eat. I got this nice big juicy steak here. I want to eat this steak. And she started talking about this man and this woman. So it just popped in my head and said, tell her she got a big brain. And I'm like, now she has breast cancer. So she's like, tell her she have a big brain. So I'm saying, that sounds so stupid, but I've learned how to trust my spark. So it wasn't called spark right now. I was just checking my insights. So I said, Cheryl, you have a big brain. And she says, oh, you think the cancer done got them? I'm like, give me something else. Give me something else. Give me something else. And then it just came to me, said, you know what? You're thinking for yourself and everybody else, and your brain just swole. And then she just sat back and she was like, you know what? He probably ain't even thinking about. I've been saying this for like hours. And she goes, he probably not even thinking about me because I don't think he would really tell her about me. Do you think so? I said, no. And she went to eat. We never had the conversation again. Now that was like something I would never even think of. So sometimes you don't know what's going to come up and how it's going to affect that person. She never talked about that again. And she lived many years after that. She lived maybe 10 years after that. But she was just working. And big brain, you know, It was something. I was like, hurry up, give me. And I'm sitting there waiting, like she was saying, I'm waiting. Come on, give me something else. And it was telling that her brain swole because you thinking for him, you thinking for her, you thinking, come on, let's just and she just stopped, and she got it.
Yeah.
And lived a happy rest of those 10 years of her life.
So many times things come to us and then we just kind of dismiss them, right?
Yeah.
Things will come up to say and you're like, no, I don't want, no, that can't be what to say. That can't be the right thing. What does that have to do with anything in the room? And I think that's your wisdom. Just, you don't have to know why.
Mm-mm.
Or next steps, like we've really learned that at Cypress, taking next steps. We used to think it was really bold what we would do. Like, oh, we're going to go do this. I have no idea why we're doing this, but it's there. The opportunity is there and we're just going to go. And now it's like, oh, that's how it works. Like that's the kindness of the design. What comes up is there for a reason. You don't have to know why. You can,
Yeah, we went to a training just to be nosy.
Yeah.
To see what it's real. We want to see what they do. We saw this thing with sailing. We needed a training and we went. And we love it. Well, 2 years later, we're in there and we're helping women that are being trafficked and change their lives. That was the purpose for us going there. It wasn't for us to go and get trained. It was for us to go and help. So you never know how that's going to work out. And it's the best. We fight to go.
Yeah, we love them.
Yeah, we love sailing.
So I think, I keep looking at the time because
we have 10 minutes left. But what I think that is really helpful, kind of how we started with sharing, is just sharing from what you've seen or what you know. And since we have 10 minutes left and then we're done with our track for the weekend, I think it would be really good if we just took some time to share what we've seen or what you've seen that's new to you, and maybe you haven't seen before. How's that sound?
It's on you.
Yeah. Does anyone have anything that they've seen? Yeah.
I do. I have like 300. And I'm not even joking. So I'm going to try to take a little piece of. I feel like I have insights going on like popcorn popping
Wow.
in my head. First of all, I'm in the wrong group.
Oh,
So
good.
this isn't where I was going to go. I'm in the right group.
Yeah.
And I'd forgotten so much. And so I'm trying to just cherry pick something. So I'm going to just do one. I kind of forgot about 9 years ago. I was volunteering in a homeless shelter in Massachusetts for program prizes for youth. I was a PAL, a play area leader. I went in and played with children. It was the homeless shelters were only for women with children, and I would, we would come in and take care of, play with the kids so that because the women had to be working full time in school, full time or both, so they needed to do their homework and stuff like that. So I was practicing the 3 principles then and as a parent 8 years ago, and I've never heard of them. But my early childhood was really bad. So going into that situation as going into a parent, I said, I know one thing. I have no freaking idea what a family is supposed to look like and what parenting is supposed to look like. So I was very firmly rooted in I have no freaking idea. And that's when my wisdom came in. And I said, as a parent, and believe me, I made lots of mistakes, but as a parent, I said, I don't know what to do, but I will love them no matter what, deeply. Even if I can't control them. And I kind of went into the play, so I'll probably just do that one story, because like I said, I got hundreds of these. I have a son who's 20, who's like your daughter, and then when they shut off, he turned around and after blah, 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 and the head's on the pillow. But in the last 2 weeks, he's been arrested twice. And it's a long, drawn-out story of addiction and problems. And he's moved out of my house, he's dropped out of school, and I still don't know. I have 2 daughters, graduate from college, and going pretty well. But I kind of forgot what I was going to say. You get the you know what? Of all the things, even I'm getting close, but it's rare that I can go into a room and feel like I'm as good or good enough or as good as the other life forms in the room. I'm getting really close, and sometimes I've got it. And, usually what it is I'm the class clown, or I'm bragging, or I'm overcompensating for the fact that I don't feel like I'm good enough. And when I came in here, I felt like, you guys just got that. And you can't teach that, but people and kids can feel it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
That you're not all that, and you just feel solid in just who you are. And I'm getting close.
Yeah,
To the fact that
you're
I'm actually
there.
speaking right now. But anyway, like I said, I could go for an hour. Thank you.
Well, I like what you
You're
said,
welcome.
you're there, because I feel the same way.
Yeah,
I think
you're
we all
there.
have that. Awesome, thank you
Okay.
so much for sharing.
Him and then
Sure.
One of the things that when we're sharing in an official capacity, like, okay, we're gonna be doing this workshop, or we're doing this series, this track, or whatever, it just kind of forces you to reflect and to think and all of that. But I think when we were talking about engagement, we sort of said it, but then it became more clear today, hearing you, is that the sharing is not even about what you say. It's not about how you say it. It's the sharing happens even before you say a word. Like, the sharing is your presence. Like, you're sharing your presence with people. Like, you're sharing your being. You're sharing life. Like, we share life together already. So just like you're already whole, we're already one. We don't have to do anything to be one. We already are. Right. That's been something that is new for me, really. It's really new that you don't have to be able to articulate anything. You just have to be yourself, and you just said it. Like, but like, you guys can sense you're just yourselves with these people, and it helps them. And that's new for me.
thank you.
You kind of stole what I was gonna say. Well, no, I mean, I seriously was gonna say, what I hear you, Helen, say all the time when you're telling stories about your kids, it seems to me that you're just showing up. Like, you're loving these kids with every, ounce of your being, and you're just present with them. And they feel that, and B, you feel it, like, and it's just, you're one, and it doesn't matter what you say, and you don't have to come up with things and have a game plan, you show up. And if an adult shows up to a kid, stops being on there. My dad gave me this advice years ago: just put your phone down when you're around your kids. I'm like, oh, novel idea. And it's like, oh my God, that it means the world to them to have somebody care. And it's
I would even say with us. I mean, I remember when I first started, like, I would lean on Helen. I'd be like, okay, if I'm nervous to go into a room, or if I'm nervous to be with even my peers, I'd be like, Helen, you're coming with me. Because she exudes that presence of just being. It's calming.
Just being.
It's not even with just kids. It is with people.
Yeah.
People like real, and people like no judgment.
Yeah.
And they can feel that. And that's what Helen did. Helen just, like, arms wide open to everybody.
Oh, your voice is in my head.
I'm just
Oh, no, now y'all
I had another one last night with expectations and outcomes.
Oh, okay,
This
yeah.
is good.
Okay, we talked about this last night. Because what I tell the kids, and even for you guys, because that's why I was supposed to share this. I have a definition for expectations. So everybody got a pencil? Of others. Expectations of others.
It's the only thing you need to write down.
Yeah. Expectations for others. This is Helenology. My definition for expectations of others is divine set up for disappointment.
Wow.
Is that right? When we expect others to do something, we're just divinely setting ourselves up for disappointment. And we get away from there, sky's the limit. Don't have expectations, just show up. Whatever comes, comes.
So can I say this? When we start our class, we're supposed to kind of put the expectation
Well, you have to do, I'm not saying that, I'm saying
So,
you have to as a
say that.
teacher.
But,
No, I'm not saying for you to say that, I'm saying,
no, not to say what you say, I'm
Yeah.
just saying, we have to say that, so I'm just trying to frame that,
you
when
think
they don't
it's too
get it.
hard, Heather.
Yeah.
You think it's too hard.
If
You
you are
think-
expecting them to
If
be
you're expecting
respectful
them to do
all the time.
I'm
as an
setting
example.
myself
setting yourself up for disappointment.
There you go.
So that's what I mean. It's not, and I do this with the kids all the time. Because so many times we expect people to do something because we set it up. And then if we just kind of let them be them, it'll show up what we want.
Or
We just show up.
we let them come up with their own expectations.
Mhm.
We've done that before too.
But
I was just gonna say too, that, you know, as human beings, you can't help but have expectations.
yeah, you're gonna have
Yeah.
expectations.
But what you can do is you can relate differently to them. And you can tell, because you can feel it.
Yeah.
When you've got a high expectation, like for the weekend, I'll do that. I'll be thinking, what are we gonna do this weekend? Is it gonna be fun or whatever? And then my wife says, hey, I think we're gonna go to my grandmom's and sit.
Exactly.
And I'm like, and I can feel myself. It's like, well, I had this expectation. And
Yeah.
I can't. So
But what if we didn't have that? What if we
the
let that
idea
go?
is not, the idea is you be nice to yourself about your expectations. You're gonna have them.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
You can take them less serious.
exactly.
And you can be like, oh, and you can laugh at yourself and you can say, oh, well, I'm feeling disappointed. Well, that's because I had a divine,
Yeah.
divinely created expectation in my mind. So,
Yeah, for others. Now you can do yours. You know, if you have expectation for yourself, you can usually make them happen. But I think so many people get disappointed because people don't do what. But like I wanted my parents, and that's probably the reason that I have this show up with kids, because I expected my parents, who were young parents, to parent me, and they didn't. They bought me. You know, my parents were workaholics, and they just threw money at me. They never hugged me. I never heard I love you. And as a little girl, I had promised that I don't care what kid I saw, because I knew how it felt not to be loved. And that's probably what you guys feel. That's what my kids feel. So I'm going to give it. I'm going to make sure that they know that they love. Because I grew up, you know, for 38 years feeling very unloved by my parents and not getting what I thought I needed. You know, they thought because they bought me, you know, expensive clothes and shoes and cars and all that stuff, I just would have loved for them just to sit and talk to me, read me a book. I'd have loved that night. I'd sit right there. I'd have been still. I wouldn't be like, yeah, but read to me. I would have loved that. I didn't get that growing up. So I think that's why every kid that I meet, I always think, what if they're not getting it at home? No.
Right.
Yeah, so I just got really touched by what you said, the divine setup for
Disappointment.
And what I heard was, there's no lose. It's a no lose scenario. No, it's an all win scenario.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's teaching you that when you have thoughts in your mind, you're blocking what's really right in front of you.
Right.
Because there could be beauty in the moment at any moment, and so it's like a no lose situation.
Yeah.
Because divine is a expectation of disappointment, but it's divine because it's all coming from somewhere within you.
Yeah.
But it's going to teach you.
It'll teach you, learn
It's going
something.
to
Yeah.
teach you. Everything is going to teach you if you're open to it.
Mhm.
You know, that's the thing. How do
Yeah.
you open yourself up to that?
Yeah.
And be okay with not knowing.
Right. Right.
That's really.
And not getting your way, not getting your way from somebody else. Because I think we always look for it to come from out here when it's really coming from inside of us. And that's the key. Because when I think people got to make me happy from out here, I'm setting myself up for disappointment. Because if a person's not happy, how can an unhappy person make another person happy? It ain't happening. You know, it's just not going to happen. If they're unhappy, they can't make you happy.
It's wearing time. Anyone else like to share?
I was just struck by something you said yesterday, Helen, about letting you be you, or when you're ready to be you. You said it to your son, when you're ready to be you.
Oh, I said that I can't save a person. When they're ready to be saved, they'll save themselves. Yeah, because so many times we want to make them, like my grandson, when he's ready, I can't save a person that don't want to be saved. When he's ready, and I mean, they flip. Both of them. I had expectation of a grandson and a son that were going down the wrong track. Within the same month, looked like both of them. When I just said, you know, I can't save them if they don't want to be saved. And when I said that and let it go, and truly, sometimes we'll say stuff, but we grab it back.
No.
You gotta let it go. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm gonna let him go. Mhm. So when we really let them go, then they're because they have this. They have that wisdom.
All right, I'm gonna cut
Okay,
you
we
off.
go.
Just, we're a little over, so I
Uh-oh.
want to see if anyone else wants to say.
Way over there on the.
We don't have any.
Oh,
We good?
Anybody else?
Well, thank you.
thank you.